Popcorn ready because it is Sunday night in some of the world, still Sunday evening here on the West Coast, but it is time for action as we have Endemic versus Octalysis for our Sunday night cap. Dreadnought, I'm excited for this one. I don't know about you.
I'm ready for a lot of things here. I think number one, just to open this up here, Oxalis has kind of worked their way up the ladder when looking at their season so far, coming out through phase number 2, and it has made a lot of things here as reflecting towards some of the standings after the last result, but it has made it to where this series in what Oxalis is doing with this kind of anti-meta, with this new approach of drafting, that this is the really first bump in the road I feel like that they're going to address. And as we said, with Endemic and some of the success that they had against Team Freedom as of late, it suddenly hits this big, number one, does the new meta work? And number two, that new version of Endemic, are we going to get that again?
There is a lot of questions to be answered when we do look at these teams on both sides, as we'll get into that more as we go on. Obviously, with Oxalis and Endemic sitting in that 4 or 5 spot, both teams playing for that playoff seeding. And where it stands right now, depending on how that goes, they could very easily, this could be a preview of things to come. As our schedule earlier today, obviously we saw Dignitas take down Team Liquid, showing that they are still the dominant force, but Roll20 picking up their first win over Method. Heroes Hearth just finished against No Tomorrow, but again, the nightcap here, Octalysis versus Endemic, is where we find ourselves.
And so one thing that I want to highlight when it comes to some of the highs that we got from Endemic in the series against Team Freedom was how they were able to dismantle their early game strategy, and with the wildness that we've got on Octalysis, not only within draft, but approach to the early game due to the drafts being so unorthodox, that I feel like that is something that is not going to be available here for Endemic, and again is going to make the series that much more of, I feel like it's a true test for both versions here of both rosters.
Well, I got to talk to both Draded and Cure this week about some of the unorthodox approaches here from Octalysis, so we're going to hear from them before we get started on this series.
Endemic has a lot of talented players on their roster, but I don't think that they've gotten the coordination and the success and maybe the transitioning from the role swaps that our team has. So I think right now we're just a bit ahead in team synergy and coordination, and I think that's going to propel us ahead to victory. First Endemic, we're going to be looking to bring the heat with some crazy drafts and looking to surprise them, and they're not going to know what's coming with a quick 3-0.
Versus Oct, last time we took him out in 5 games, so I think it's going to be a pretty wild series. I think they might come out with some of their patented cheese. I know a lot of people complain about cheese, but I think it definitely freshens things up, and I'd like him adjusting to like maybe the ADRD of NA, where he's got a lot of wacky ideas, and some of them really work out, and he really gets, you know, hits the meta on the head. But I think it'll probably go 4 or 5 games either way. We'll just have to see if their type of stuff works, or if we can play into it pretty well.
Well, Dreadnought, when I talked to Cure, we, of course, dabbled in the, what do you expect going up against this team? And, obviously, Cure, just last phase, was on this team. He's like, he just laughed, right? I was like, what do you make of these drafts? He's like, man, when I played with Justin, he's like, we weren't quite sure what was going to be coming. He experienced a lot of that trial and error phase in that. Not as much of it showed up on game days as it does now. So it is a different approach here. Secure very used to the style, even being a part of that last phase. So for him, it's almost business as usual, just on the other side.
And I think that's actually a pretty big advantage for Endemic, though it's not going to be the exact same kind of ideology being endorsed here by Justin and the current meta, but it surely is going to be the same approach and school of thought and how he concludes to those things. And if having any amount of insight into that in the background is going to pay off here for Cure and friends, if he, again, follows the same path.
Well, let's see where Cure and friends will be playing, because it's time to figure out battleground number 1 here between these two teams. It's going to be Volskaya, picked up here by Octalysis, with the bans coming in. Endemic, they're going to take Braxis off the table, and Sky Temple by Octalysis, their usual ban now. So Volskaya, a map where we saw Octalysis recently, even going into the Valir on the back part of that draft. And Dreadnought, I want to focus on that a little because we've seen it. You alluded to it already. It's worked against a couple of teams, but it's almost like they're climbing the ladder in terms of rankings about who this is going to be working to, and I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is the level of play that we've gotten from their opponents, right, as we kind of step it up here. And again, what we got from Endemic, the results that they have, that it does feel like this is going to be, for me, the breaking point or like kind of judgment on whether or not their anti-meta is truly going to work out here. Because overall, you know, after last week and getting the interview, it feels like it's less about that we're going to be the team drawing out major resources or at least getting too wild in the draft. It's more we want to demand resources in the draft from our opponents, and that's how we're going to get the upper hand. That draft strategy-wise, I think is going to come to light here. But if Oxalis fails to be able to maybe get that respect, which they already kind of are getting it a little bit there with the Medivh, I think it will, and they struggle, I think it will show a big concern there for the future of Oxalis. Can't help but just feel like, again, this sets the tone for both teams.
Doesn't seem like Maiev will see much play after the clash. Sergeant Hammer banned out here by Oxalis, and Endemic does hold that first pick, so see if they put the onus of the ban onto Oxalis. We're going to see an Abathur ban. So this does feel like banning against ADRD, because if you watch any bit of Method in Europe, the two bans that come out in almost every single game are Medivh and Abathur, and that's going to be the Endemic approach. And now Oxalis, do they want to let the Maiev through? Do they want to keep Deckard out of the hands of Endemic?
Diablo's choice. When we talked to Mike Udall, though, they said that that was a lot of the thought process probably going into the series, right? Rid of the cheese, play to your team's strength. And Endemic's going to start with playing to the strengths there. Pick up big impact, his Deckard Cain. Made some pretty big plays on that already throughout this series, or throughout this weekend.
Yeah, if anybody did miss that Endemic series that we had previously, it was announced. Michael Udall let me know beforehand, let us know. He's like, look, there's some changes coming in. And, well, that involves Michael Udall moving back to the ranged assassin role. And then, of course, Biggie now moving to that support role. So the changes coming in here for Endemic paid off very well in their series against Team Freedom.
And he's going to have a heck of a game to be able to show his growth already within the support role. In opening Murden Maiev, kill potential within the 4-man for Oxalis, that is going to be very difficult to deal with as a cleanseless support who also enjoys that kind of slower cadence. Oxalis is not going to let that happen here, especially when looking at control point A. Back to picks here for Endemic, though, going with the Rainer and the Blaze. I do like to see that high value towards the offlanes having more macro pressure here from these teams today. Throughout all of HGC North America today, there's been a lot of emphasis there.
No Urel yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Endemic, they have to consider, because it was a somewhat similar draft that we saw. We could still get the Urel coming out there to pair with the Maiev. We know Draded has stepped up his play. The Maiev, the Medivh, things that require the different flexible playstyle. Draded has really been standing out on that. But we got the Valera at the tail end of their previous draft. Is there's going to be a Genji ban? So does Endemic, do they take away the meta of the Urel, which we know would be incredibly strong with this comp? Or do they have something else in mind that they think Oxalis might pull out? You mentioned old school tempo Vikings player was a man that's gone Oxalis.
Yeah, it was Goku. After KO moved over to Goku. It could be him busting it out here for the squad at some point if they would like to do so. I'm going to say it's going to be a while until we see another Viking showing up here in North America, even for probably Oxalis. We got a Junkrat and a Thrall. Junkrat will be able to help with that offlane pressure that Blaze will be able to provide, especially with the Urel ban into the offlane. It allows you to essentially not be forced into the Leoric offlane. It's not a bad offlane, but you don't have to go to it and make up for your macro pressure there.
We know that Maiev functions incredibly well alongside another melee assassin, so you can complement that front line. They do pick up the Thrall to fit that role. Johanna's going to be the pickup, and it's going to be Li Ming. So they have just a very standard draft on the side of Endemic, giving them that strong frontliner that can deal with the tethers that can come in from Maiev. It's just a matter of follow-up that we get. The Junkrat follow-up on a lot of this. Johanna does fit that role, the Iron Skin, to walk away from that. For Oxalis, we still need a support, though.
Stugov is the choice. Very meta here for Oxalis. In the last pickup, going with the standard support, not getting too wild, running a Maiev with a secondary melee assassin, also not that wild. We're running in a position where for the first time we've seen them stick to pretty much from beginning to end standard. And I would argue the Medivh Abathur, though it is a resource you could argue is catered towards Oxalis, it's not enough for me to feel like they got that upper hand when it came to the draft resources here. So I feel like this already shows Oxalis is really respecting Endemic before they even start.
They got that Maiev pick, which you know had to be contemplated there by Endemic. I think the thing for me when I consider Endemic and the Maiev pick for the rest of the series, who plays Maiev right now? Because Biggie moved over to the support role.
Yeah.
Dansky can play that, but they've been more reliant on Michael Udall to kind of fill the, I don't want to be the primary carry here. I don't want to be the Hanzo. Let me be the Junkrat. I want to do this. I want to be able to scout the rest of the map. I want to flex to where I don't have to have that high kill priority because he is the shot caller. Allows him to, you know, put his resources elsewhere, allowing the team to do the things that they do best. And the Maiev is something he can play, but how practiced is he given the recent role change?
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up. It is pretty concerning. I will say I would like to see more of a Dansky on that. I feel like that playmaking capabilities work out a little bit better for him. But we'll find out here. So we're getting things unfolding here. In the blue, it is going to be Oxalis, where we have Justin repping it here onto the Murden. We had Goku, as we said, talking about having him onto the Maiev. Prismaticism here onto the Junkrat. Bud's playing onto Stukov, and I missed, I believe, there. We had Drayden on Thrall.
You got not just Thrall, but Crash Lightning Thrall. That's going to be a fun one. So now we'll look to the right side of the map where it's going to be Endemic, and Dansky, of course, will be on the Rainer. Cure on the Blaze. Biggie, of course, on the support role now. He'll be on Deckard. Michael Udall trying to bring the pain on Li Ming, and then B-Kid on the front line on Johanna. An interesting switch up. I anticipated Drayden to be on the Maiev. Goku, very skilled player. He's going to flex over onto that, leaving Drayden on that Thrall, which when they have played triple melee, it's generally been Drayden on that Thrall, but given the current setup, I thought it might be different.
Goku ends up getting the reel back onto Cure. This is a winning matchup in the long run for Cure when it comes to the wave clear, especially depending on what direction he goes with his build, looking at the level 7 talent opportunities. One thing to note is, again, at the level 1 on Blaze, we go with the CDR rather than the Unstoppable. And one of the biggest arguments, I think, at the Easter Clash when we started seeing the Unstoppable kind of become the more meta pickup was into Maiev. She was the first hero that really seemed to be the answer out of that Warden's Cage, being able to use your passive, walk up, drop a couple of Warden's Cage kind of walls, if you will, and remove that for the team so they have an easy escape is always a great play, and also enables that bunker.
We saw Octalysis start the turret, then pull off the turret. Justine was able to sniff out that Endemic was on the support camp, but now we see they haven't yet leashed it. Dansky and team are keeping this here, but that turret now has been picked up. Octalysis, if they choose to fight, does have that. They also have the concussion mine on point. So this is a way for them to take early control. It's just a matter of, are they willing or do they need to commit the turret here to maybe try and take this?
Find out. Skirmish unfolding here. A lot of damage there dropped by Mikey Doll over the wall, but look at that Cure trying to kite away. Jet propulsion out. Tether used by Goku, reeling back Dansky. He eats a potion. Concussion mine knocking back B-Kid and him. Octalysis here do end up winning that skirmish, able to get the biotic emitter for themselves. But Endemic surely has to be thankful in the fact that they were able to even make it out without a death.
Well, we did see the turret used there as well to try and confirm one of those kills. They were unable to do so. So Octalysis, they did get it. They did flex a little. They did use one resource that they won't have available. I'm quite surprised. How in the world did we get a full level lead already? Where has Endemic been on this map?
I actually am struggling to identify that as well, and I'm looking around on the battleground trying to figure out what that was. Part of it was the experience. Also the minion wave was kind of on reserve, right? They were kind of building against them, so it hasn't been a full level at this point in time, but surely definitely had to be a lane preparation at some point over that top rotation. That surely has paid off here for Octalysis. The one thing I'm torn about here, Jay, is the fact that they got a full level lead and we're still not seeing a Murd in level 4, which is not a talent tier question or trade-off we often ask about. I mean, you got two options. You either go for second follow-up for your healing static to get you a lot of healing, or you go typically for bonus damage onto the Stormbolt. It's going to stick with the standard here for that reverb. Tether does land, Iron Skin forced.
So one thing to note, I think, for people that are playing, right, the turret gives you a lot of value, a lot of control onto the control point. But the early game experience from that, I think, is oftentimes underestimated as we see an interrupt on that Dwarf Toss as that comes in. The response there by Buds getting the silence down, but it's the experience that you get from camps. I think people oftentimes underestimate. If you think you're going to get more out of a kill, you could guess differently, because getting those camps early game is something you should consider in your own games. As we see Justin and team hold on to point, but Michael Udall bringing in a lot of the pain here as he puts down another lurking arm, and Goku comes in to follow up for first blood.
Yeah, gets the flank there and ends up hitting 3 Qs.
That body block.
Double stack reset, then gets a follow-up there onto the shadow body block through Goku. Stepping up here for Octalysis, and the reason they're able to get those first 2 kills and a lot of percentage here on control point A.
level 7 this early in the game, it seems like there's a much longer delay, a much more staggered point. For Oxalis, they've really found a way to get control in this early game. They have a full level lead, have that 7 talent tier advantage going into that, and now they're ready to double up on this turret. Things looking very good for Oxalis in the early game.
And I am excited to watch how this game unfolds. If that is the first initiation we get with Goku onto the Maiev, and that is only a 3-man rotation, that surely is going to look pretty once we hit the full 5-on-5 heroics. Goku comes back in using the conveyor. Will he drop a tether? Seems to be more patient with that now as we hit overtime here for Oxalis.
Ooh, Goku going in. Remember, there's still the biotic emitter and a turret for Oxalis if they need to use it. Right now, they haven't just yet, but Bud's eating a large combo again. There's going to be the tether. It does bring in Cure. The root follow-up there from Jerated. Right now, they're forcing them back. Goku unable to get the reset on that Fan of Knives just yet.
Watch how often Cure preps that oil down like that, and then B-Kid gets the follow-up into the Condemn. Last time they won the initiation, a lot of it was based on that play right there into the Condemn follow-up around the oil. The damage is there, but we see the response with Goku finding a tether. Now Cure is going to be the focus, adjusting. Dwarf tosses in, and 2 kills immediately here for Oxalis.
Can we get 3? Oh, Justin's like, look, I'm taking way too much damage. I got to get away. I want to see this adaptation start to change. Oh. I was going to say, they're trying to snipe behind that. That actually denies the back of Biggie, who's very low on mana. When you find yourself behind on a control point, and it's almost level 9 to level 7.5, which is where we found Endemic.
Yeah, now watch.
It's almost better to just give it up at that point, because now we look at snowball potential. It's indefensible when the enemy team has level 10. This thing is still so healthy that we might be looking at double forts.
I think one of the biggest arguments maybe against that approach is because you don't have to auto-force onto the objective and inevitably get it, right? If I walk off that point, I don't start capturing anymore. So I can go Infernal Shrines approach, and I can be like, well, I have the advantage. You aren't going to contest this. I'm not going to cap this. I'll wait for my 10 spike, and then it sets you still equally behind. But I do agree that there's a certain level of consistency at which we see the team stick around with essentially every resource available, all committed to what feels like the inevitable end of just waiting until their opponents pick it up for themselves and do what Oxalis has done for the past minute and a half.
Well, that's why I was surprised that Oxalis didn't make that rotation. They used Maiev to at least clear mid, but they didn't necessarily force mid, and that fort is sitting at about half health. They are going to use their talent tier to go in here into the middle. Avatar has been used. Riptire is going to come out. That's going to explode back onto Cure. No follow-up just yet there, but they walk away with the turret. See if they still siege up. They don't exactly have the best siege potential with just the Junkrat there, but with the talent tier advantage, you can basically flex in this area, and that seems what they're finally making the rotation in to do.
And I really love this rotation from Oxalis here. This lack of, waiting for any advantage. We know the 10 into non-heroic advantage or talent tier is surely the biggest power spike you can have in all of Heroes of the Storm, but they were unwilling to give up that bottom camp. Prismat is not letting anything up for free on the top half, while the rest are still getting something elsewhere. Oxalis is getting anything and everything available, and this, to me, is probably one of the biggest steps up, I feel like, from this roster, even more so than the anti-meta, the unique drafts. This right here, this is impressive.
It doesn't get much cleaner than this. We're looking 4 kills, and it's not like they've just been like, oh my goodness, everything just drastically changed. It's like, here's one, here's a couple, and then here's a protector. Oh, by the way, it's time for us to go to work. That's what's happening right now.
Very much is. Blaze in the offlane, though, will have better offlane soak than Maiev will, even being able to make the rotation up here to join possibly Endemic. Not going to fully commit to that, so offlane soak still between the two. But Blaze just has the wave clear capabilities there for Cure, whereas Maiev doesn't have the reset onto the Fan of Knives without multiple heroes.
Crash Lightning currently at 18 stacks. We know that the 30 is the prime number to make sure you get that big damage, which it's always getting damage, but then prioritizes heroes. Cure's going to get pulled back in. Nice body block in there by Goku into a concussion mine. This coordination is on point right now, but Goku ended up using the Warden's Cage, doesn't make it out alive, gets sniped by that, so a good response here by Endemic.
Also, great job there by Dansky, being able to get right up to the wall of the Warden's Cage, going like, well, this is the max distance I'm going to make it. Let's just throw the Q, see if we can get it. Clips it at the very tip there, and make sure to get the punishment against Goku over which was a very clean initiation. The tether opportunity was originally, you could tell was like, can we get an interrupt onto jet propulsion there? Instead, using the gap closer to make sure it happened, but that's part of the reason. Endemic was able to turn it around. Camp is going to be picked up now for Octalysis, waiting out the camp. They're trying to make sure they get even timing with that control point B.
That bottom right camp is about to spawn the healing pulse camp shortly after. So Endemic will be able to load up on that turret that spawns in the bottom right. It's a matter of the rotation. Because it's staggered on that healing pulse, you can see it's just under 15 seconds away. That does give Endemic an opportunity to try and get to 13 and force that as a point of contention. But Oxalis still has that talent tier advantage if they want to make a point for that.
Endemic's answer for now seems to be waiting to siege below. 3-man gank through mid, but Prismat quickly nopes out of that.
They're pushing up top lane.
Just force the advantage here. Infernal Shrines force the hand on the lane with the control point. Able to make it out in time. Big impact. Will you get the dismount? Cure flanking. Jet propulsion is going to be huge. Nice block there by Justin with that dwarf toss.
But we've got Buds. He's stuck in deep. There's going to be the blessed shield. They're trying to get the follow-up. Justine trying to keep everybody alive, but Michael Udall comes in with the snipe there onto Stukov. Nice combo there. The wave of force directly in, making sure that he can't escape. So Endemic, last 2 kills have been in their favor, fighting back. Octalysis still holds a 2-level lead. Octalysis should be back in time to contest this, getting up to 99%, while Junkrat soaking that lane the entire time. You look up, we're looking at 16 talents here. Might be achievable by the time they look to re-engage for Oxalis.
This is the biggest silver lining for Endemic, is that they are going to be able to force such a big camp in the downtime. Goku might not let that happen, though, as they get the Stormbolt land onto Deckard Cain along with the Warden's Cage and the Riptire, and that is the first kill there. Deckard is gone. Drayden trying to kite out now. Iron Skin is used, but Octalysis down a man, no problem.
Well, now for Oxalis, the picture for them is clear. They're close to 16. They have the man advantage. Now they can get the 16 talent tier comfortably, pick up the Protector. In that top lane, Dreadnought, they already did some work on that, which is why we see Endemic responding to this. That camp is showing on the minimap for Oxalis, so Endemic does fast clear that. But they have an opportunity now, with the damage already done in this top lane, to look at an early keep.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say at this point in time, Octalysis is surely looking for a keep. The biggest advantage that Endemic has going for him, though, is that's still 55 seconds until Goku will have the Warden's Cage, which is a very good initiator to force the, your opponent into a bad position, so you get an early and easy siege up onto the keep. Protector has made its way up.
There's a lot of firepower in return when you look at the Rainer's Raider that's kind of hovering around. We know Rainer can put out the damage, Li Ming can put out the damage, so there is a lot of counter damage, which is why we see Oxalis giving the patient approach, waiting for their minions to come in to try and thwart this, to buy time. This keeps still definitely the focus, only 35% health left for Oxalis.
Warden's Cage comes up 7 seconds before this Protector ends. They can all in with it at the back end of the second, and even if they get the kill, get the Warden's Cage counter initiation.
Nice wave of force, by the way.
Yeah, get the interrupt there onto Prismaticism while he's channeling it, and no Riptire available.
Oxalis, mission accomplished. They get 16. It didn't prep that bot lane, which is fine. I think the trade-off is definitely very favorable. No no global available for Endemic. Prismat, got to be careful. There's the Blessed Shield combo. Instant blow up.
That was a really good job by Endemic, understanding that the Junkrat off-soak is just going to continue, and at this point they need to find somebody out somewhere on the battleground to be able to get an advantage elsewhere. Find Prismaticism, use the resources necessary, not even stacking multiple heroics. That's oftentimes a mistake that you see in these type of situations. And Endemic's ready to recover this game back at least to even footing here, J-How. It's not going to be a perfect 50-50, but by no means for how bad that early control point situation and picture was with the 11 into level 8. This game is back to definitely winnable for Endemic.
Yeah, if they can hold pre-20, it's up to Oxalis to make sure that they can force the 20-tier advantage. But Endemic does have control when we look at the next control point, because it is bottom. There's no fort to retreat to, no well to go back and tap to, something Endemic still currently has. So the Oxalis rotation to make sure and maximize soak to try and push towards 20, it's going to be a very interesting point in how the rest of this game plays out.
With Goku picking up that camp a little bit earlier, Goku has to be careful. Does end up getting the reveal, knows that the rest of Endemic is in fact on to this support camp. With that, Oxalis wastes no time, get the split pressure out, try and get damage on bottom.
They got the well. That's one thing that they know that they have in favor. If you watch the minimap, you can constantly see Maiev rotating around, being that warden, being that scout to keep an eye on things to make sure that no flanks come in. So keeping that at bay, catapults and camp will be responded to, and that will allow Oxalis to be aggressive towards the bot lane, Dreadnought. I think they were just sniffed out by Li Ming, but that does allow them to turn their attention back towards this fort as they have eyes on the rest of Endemic in that top lane, but now the rotation down should be enough to keep this fort standing.
Yeah, and it's really going to hurt Endemic, not only because of that split pressure on the top half, but if they let free siege happen on the bottom half of the battleground and any more experience go over to Octalysis, the race to 20 will be so devastating and so close to the 20 threshold that Control Point C will inevitably have that easy stall into it for Octalysis, and that's something Endemic, it feels like that is a near lethal situation, something that they cannot let happen at this point in time. Did a good job though, holding off for now with the Rainer kind of feigning interest and then making the rest of the transition down. We have the 30-second warning.
I hope we don't have a 30-minute warning, Dread.
I mean
like some long games, but I got a feeling it would end before that. Endemic finds themselves in a reasonable scenario, Dreadnought. They kept their fort alive, which would have been a nice chunk of XP for Oxalis to get to level 20. So Oxalis looks like they're going to opt to try and take this fight. There's not enough XP on the battleground for them to conceivably get 20 in time. So B-Kid, Iron Skin is out. So Oxalis gains control in the early part.
It's all about Goku. Wherever you see that tether come out, and Endemic, if they can respect it enough.
Looks like Junkrat's going to go to the top to deal with that camp. They've already gotten some control, but this is a...
Oh, they interrupted the dwarf toss.
Bad.
Scroll the ceiling, forcing the Avatar. A lot of healing static value, though. Flailing Swipe comes down. Goku trying to get a tether. There's the Warden Cage. Everybody getting into the bunker, but the flamethrower damage gets the kill onto Justin. They get the kill on the Buzz. Mikey Doll gets the reset onto the backline, and he is just dominating Octalysis here. 3 kills for nothing, and they are not done. Big Impact throws down the Harajuku Cube. Scroll the ceiling as well. Octalysis only have Junkrat as a defense, and Endemic now start the siege.
Yeah, this has gone from bad to worse. Oxalis wasn't able to get that fort, therefore they weren't able to get 20, and now they're all inning. They are going to go ahead and sidewall. They're going on to keep. They're going for core. 25 seconds before anybody on Oxalis is back, which is why we see Junkrat. Prismat's going to go ahead and get this out. Got to make sure he doesn't get interrupted by the wave of force, but here comes Endemic trying to take game number 1 with the comeback.
Big Impact is very low. Throws down the scroll of the ceiling. He's the biggest target for them, along with Dansky. They get the biotic healing coming out there. Shielding on the core is gone. 60% and counting. Prismat doing his best, but the jet propulsion comes through. Mikey Doll throws down the damage. Dansky's bouncing around everywhere, but it seems like it's going to be enough here. J-How 20, 15, the Blessed Shield. There's the bunker, and that is game. Endemic continue their upset streak here over Octalysis and take game 1.
Let's talk about the shot calling, because there was one moment where it all changed, and that was that rotation when they saw Junkrat going. That pick right there started a cascade of events that was almost irrecoverable for Octalysis. It looked like an easy win as long as they don't die. But they died, and then we got another pick in the middle of that, and things went from bad to worse.
And it should be noted that that was a lot of what Endemic did against Team Freedom, but it was in the early game and it was through rotations. But that is how we know Team Freedom will really set the kind of tone in North America when they end up playing. Endemic did a great job of dismantling that. Not same case when looking at the early game, but that to me shows that the late game shot calling and that adjustment for Mike Udall onto the Assassins rather than the supports, this is really going to pay off for this team, because they are showing now 2 series in a row against some of the most formidable teams in NA that they have a very clear understanding of what is necessary to come back in games, and they can even make it happen there, even in game 1.
A large part of that does come down to a lot of the shot calling, and I think that it was a key component there for Endemic to get back into that. It's a point that, you know, you and I talked about that Team Freedom series. But let's take a look at the expanded standings that we have here for North America, because it will come down to not just your overall win-loss in terms of matches, Dreadnought, but it also comes down to map score, which is why it's important for teams like Oxalis, when they get further into theirs, to try and not just pick up wins, but do so without dropping the maps. If they want to climb in the ranks, they need to take down Team Freedom. They need to make sure and not to lose maps. So far, so good. Everything seems like on a knife's edge at any given moment. One ripple can create just a whole different layer of events for Endemic. Obviously, they've got a long climb up if they want to get there, but only sitting at 2 losses in the loss column behind Oxalis. So there is room for all of these teams to climb in some fashion or another.
And with Endemic and the success that they're currently displaying, if that continues, that gap is going to be a lot closer towards that next slot, beyond just the, you know, as we said, the win-loss score, but looking towards that overall map score and the positivity. Once you reach the Tempo Storm threshold, that feels like, you know, you're going to have a hard time being able to take out them, anybody, really, for that matter. But surely between Oxalis' Freedom and Endemic, it is anybody's game. And the way that Endemic's playing, they seem like they're the team that at least is hungry here to make sure that they put their name on it.
That one, though, when I see, this is the thing. We talked to Oxalis at Western Clash. They come in as the number 4 seed. Their record was not pretty. And they said, you know what? We were close in all of these series. We feel we're actually better than what our record is on paper. And they have always had this self-belief that they are one of the top teams. Losing games like this have to hurt because against the better teams, Dreadnought, we mentioned in draft, sometimes does it work against. This was not a draft issue. One mistake against a great team, and that's what's something with those more interesting drafts. You have one slip-up, good teams, especially with decent shot calling, can capitalize on that. And that's going to always be the thing with this style of play, with this style of drafting, if they continue like we have seen in the past. This was a great draft for them. It was great. It was very well executed until that one moment. And after that, the wheels fell off. They couldn't get that 20-tier advantage. They didn't have the rotation over. They tried to use the mobility of a Muradin to sit down on point, buy a little time, send Junkrat up. They got caught. And those small mistakes become huge punishing mistakes on the other side. So Endemic, credit where credit's due. They came back. But at the same time, Octalysis probably has that same mentality as, we let it slip through our fingers.
Yeah, that is probably a really good point to bring up, is that mentally speaking, Oxalis, I think, could be a bit more dismissive of that game and be like, you know, just a couple of small mistakes. But I very much view that because those small mistakes weren't as casual as most of them. They were very proactive, well thought out decisions that, to me, in my opinion, a lot of them were kind of countered on the side of Endemic. You could tell that they knew the Junkrat was the only way they were going to get a pick and that they need to make that play. Same with the Muradin out of position over the bottom control and the Dwarf toss out. That's the win condition in that situation. So I look at this and I go, I think it is easy to dismiss it, but if, you know, from my standpoint here, it's very much going, Endemic is putting another level of kind of shot calling and decision making that, if worked on, I feel like is going to look really good here in North America.
Well, let's see if it continues.